"2005 has The Rock on the big string along with Zero Demons. Doom Annihilation has random references to Doom, but no Doom guy. But a lot of people don't realize that before the 2005 movie, Doom was going to have an entirely different approach to coming to theaters. Right after the success of Doom 2, the rights for the, quote, movie option were licensed around 1994 and 1995, when the game's success was evident. Several production companies wanted their chance at adapting it, Dimension Films and several Disney companies all had shown interest in the project. Eventually the rights were gained by Universal Pictures, with Ivan Reitman and Northern Lights Films assigned to the project. Which, if you're a super uncultured swine like me, Ivan Reitman is the guy who directed Ghostbusters, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, and more, which those last two specifically are what created the massive speculation that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be starring in the film. Also with an interview with id Software and PC Gamer stating, "If I close my eyes and imagine the perfect Doom movie, I see Arnold Schwarzenegger with all the Doom stuff, and ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, is working on special effects. And the plot would be in the manner of something like when Arnie flew to Mars at a time when the otherworldly gates opened and demons invaded from them." It also stated in the article that they had full control of the movie, saying, "And at that moment, we are deciding what the final scenario will be, and they must obey us." In another interview with Jay Wilbur of id Software in the September 1995 edition of Flux magazine, when asked about the movie, he states, "It's in development right now. Draft 1 of the script has come and gone, and under my understanding is that the boys over at Northern Lights Entertainment, Ivan Reitman's production company, have taken their red pens to it, and the scriptwriter is back in the office writing the next draft. The first draft of the script they kept in-house because it was rough. All first drafts are, even drafts of games. So we're waiting to see exactly what the second draft is like. We told them not to try and pigeonhole the movie too close to the game. We've seen that happen with other game movies, and they have not been successful. Doom's plot is, well, I'm being generous when I say thin. They're going to have to write a lot around it. I think that's one of the strengths of the Doom story when it comes to the movie. There isn't a thick plot with a lot of intricate things going on that they have to try and write around. It's very loose, there's a plausible story as thin as it is. It's there and plausible, and they just have to figure out a way to fill in the holes. Back then, several rumors had popped up claiming to have the casting list and plot summary, but these are all just unconfirmed rumors, such as Stallone playing the, quote, green guy. But most of this was just rumors of the time that were spread on Corona Productions, an early film rumor website comprised of, quote, scoops given from several sources. I believe this is where we first hear of Mo Losmanoso, the CEO/president of Ethos Films, who on the website claimed to now be the producer of the film, and vehemently denied the rumors on the site about casting and the film being an adaptation of the David App Hugh and Brad Lineweaver novels. Which I really wish was the case, because this alleged cast listing of what would have been gives us an alleged view of what Flynn and Arlene would have looked like. But honestly, not at all what I imagined they would resemble. Howie Long allegedly would play Flynn, which he does have Doomguy's features, but I don't know. I imagine Flynn as a completely separate character from Doomguy.
And yes, spoilers for the Revelations trailer and Revelations if you haven't played it. They say so Flynn Taggart is his canon name, which I don't know how I feel about, but I recorded that way before the trailer came out. So yeah, moving on.
But that's just what I imagined when I read the book. Lori Petty as Arlene, I can see it. But when I read Knee Deep in the Dead, I kinda imagined her looking more like Gina Carano. To back up Mo's statements, the creature designer Vincent Quistani wrote, "Mo is the producer and owner of Doom, and I know that even when the project was at Universal. I am a close friend of Mr. Losmanoso, and there should be no need to question him as to who he is. It is common knowledge as to who owns the movie rights, and it is Mo Losmanoso, who will also produce the project. And I now hope the fans know the real scoop." Signed, Vincent J. Guastani, creature designer. Here Guastani says as well that even when the project was at Universal, Mo was still the producer. But then this would imply David Reitman and Northern Lights Films were no longer on the project, but Mo was always producing the film. I was really lost looking up Mo Losmanoso on Google because it would always just loop back to the Lost Media Wiki page for the movie, until I found out after hours of researching that his full name is Maurice Losmanoso. There's also tellings of Terry Fitzgerald of Todd McFarlane Productions being very close to having a deal finalized, with Losmanoso later commenting that this is true and that he's excited to work with him. I was really skeptical of the Corona site until I read this interview with, at the time, id Software CEO Tal Hollenshed. I looked up, there's several ways to pronounce that. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. Here we see Universal was indeed the original rights holder, then it had been moved to Sony/TriStar Productions. He calls these the quote, old deals. After they had shown Doom 3 for the first time, they basically sat down with their agents with Creative Arts Agency, then had several Hollywood executives come out to see if there was any interest. It stated their terms, and Universal fit those exact shoes, with some back and forth, but in the end, Universal had the rights again, which is how we ended up later with The Rock on the big screen. He also commented that at one point, they gave Warner Brothers a deadline of 12 months to greenlight a movie to get them moving on it. Along with this, he said that as far as he knew, Doom was the first movie deal where the developer and the rights holder had gross point royalties in the deal itself. Back to the old movie deals, there was an initial first draft which John Carmack found horrible, with a later second draft being pretty mediocre, later saying the film option had just lapsed. Guastani, who had backed up Los Minoso and Corona Films earlier, is actually where we get some of the only found material for this production, with him said to be the lead creature designer, with these concept sketches and models which are insanely cool concepts of what could have been. However, the whereabouts of these models today remain unknown, and likely may have deteriorated over time, like this Mario Bros. 1993 Goomba, which Vincent and Los Minoso had actually previously worked on that film, giving us kinda an idea of what vibe the movie was gonna be.
It's actually because he worked on the Mario movie, I found out his name is Maurice Los Minoso, and I just gotta say, I will die on this hill. Mario Bros. 1993 is better than the Super Mario movie and the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Argue with a wall.
The film's final nail in the coffin, and huge heads up because this is a huge tonal shift. The 1993 Columbine Massacre, with the killers, mainly Eric Harris, being obsessed with the game and novels, creating his own WADs, which some of those WADs themselves are lost media as well. This created allegations that Doom was what caused the two to carry out the massacre. And Guastani says, this was the main reason TriStar canceled the project, along with some other creative differences between it and TriStar. As of today, the only found parts of the production are the sketches and models shared by Guastani on his website, which in 2005, the models for the Demon, or what is now commonly referred to as the Pinky, the Cyber Demon, and Spider Mastermind were auctioned off on eBay, with the Lost Media Wiki saying there's an alleged Baron of Hell one, but I think that could just possibly be the Cyber Demon image, as it has no cyber parts. And in this next entry coming up, we'll see the confusion between the Baron of Hell and the Cyber Demon. Outside of the Incubus, no other enemies have shown up in production material, so we don't have any confirmation if cacodemons, imps, or any other creatures showed up in the film. So for surviving scripts, we know of at least one completed draft by Northern Lights Entertainment, and a second one that was in production, but if the second one was ever completed is unknown. These could still exist today, but since they were written in-house, it depends on if Universal archived them. As for when TriStar was involved, they had presented 2 scripts as well, and those may survive today in Sony and or its archives. But as of today, none of these have surfaced, and hopefully one day we'll see the script in all of its glory, but more likely we'll see it in all of its mediocrity. I covered some of Doom's ports in my ICEBERG series, but it clearly didn't do enough justice to the 3DO port, because this thing's development for the lead programmer was, no pun intended, hellish. Art Data Interactive was tasked with porting Doom to the anticipated 3DO console. Randy Scott, the company's founder, had promised several things for this port to surpass the PC version. To put it nicely, Randy didn't understand how games were developed.
He also didn't understand the age of consent.
The main person to program the port of the game, Rebecca Heinemann, wasn't given the game's source code and was basically expected to just take the shareware disk and copy it to the 3DO cart, which if you don't know, that's not how it works. This isn't the only thing Rebecca, or as she's better known online as Burger Becky, had to deal with. She has an entire video where she discusses the hardships of the project and how she eventually ended up completing the port only within the 10 weeks that she had. Unfortunately, while making the script, Rebecca tragically passed away on November 17th due to issues with cancer. She was the co-founder of Interplay Productions, which went on to develop the Fallout games, and overall just a very skilled programmer who did a million things. I highly recommend watching some of her old streams where she explains the process of creating and porting games. One of the things that she was expected to implement in the 3DO port of the game was full motion video cutscenes, which were a big feat for the 3DO.
But, back to why? Why was this even filmed? And it goes back to utter ignorance of the video game development process. In the idea that if I was to make a video game that had cutscenes in it, you figure out the cutscenes and where they go in the game before you even start developing the game. You don't wait till the game's 2 weeks from shipping and then tell your exasperated developer, hey, got some more work for you. Can you drop these MP, in this case, QuickTime movie files in there? And that's when, urge to kill is rising. So, whatever.
A test for the footage was filmed in the Art Data offices in Simi Valley, which is weird reading because I don't live too far from there. Maybe I'll go find this lost media.
If the footage is to be found, expect it to be either on some sort of professional Betamax cassette tape, actual 35mm footage, or more likely 16mm to be honest, or a digital camera with a resolution max of 640 by 480, because again, 1995.
For the scene, Chris Gilman with Global Effects was tasked with creating this cyberdemon-looking creature, but it was apparently confirmed by Heinemann it was meant to resemble the Baron of Hell.
And of course, they did spend money, about $10K I think it was, on a Baron of Hell suit, in which the suit was kind of inspired from the Icon of Sin, in which you have the demon head and the exposed brain.
It's just always very confusing because Cyberdemon has this wide head, Baron of Hell is more squished. It's not important to the lost media at all. Which I have to mention, the physique was based on bodybuilder Paul DeMeo, also known as Quadzilla, which I can see why. Ow! An already existing suit of a Minotaur costume was used and modified to have 3 fingers. The head was created from fiberglass for the frame and foam latex for the skin. Gilman had been the intended user of the Minotaur suit and therefore had to be the one inside the remodeled one, as he described it as hot and uncomfortable. With the suit made, they headed to the art data office, where off the bat, Gilman noticed that they had set up a 10x10 green screen, immediately letting him know this wasn't going to be professional production, saying, quote, "The first thing I said to the people who were working on it was the green screen is really too small, and I'm worried it's too close." They were like, "Oh, no, this is fine." I was like, "Okay, you guys know what you're doing, whatever you are going to do." This resulted in the camera being too close, and in the end product, we're only able to see the top half of the actors. Gilman spent the rest of the day improvising scenes of attacking actors dressed in army costumes. When Gilman later asked what happened to the footage, he was told most of it was unusable due to the green spill, which, as a pampered zoomer of today, with electronic chroma key presets, I can't even begin to imagine the hell that would be fixing that by hand on film. We know that what was used was shown at the Consumer Electronics Show, as seen in this Game Fan magazine for its 1995 CES feature. Along with this, we have this excerpt from an old Google Hangouts discussion describing what the Consumer Electronics Show presentation looked like, saying the acting was similar to Baywatch and had special effects to Voyage of the Bottom of the Sea. Rebecca was asked to put the cutscenes in 2 weeks before the release date, which she just outright refused, which, yeah, how can you blame her?
I mean, my only involvement was that I was being shoved a CD that supposedly had the files on it, and I politely returned it because I'm like, no, I'm not, because if I take this disc, I'm committing to putting this in the game, and there's no way, I'm already not sleeping at night because I'm working, 16-hour days. No, and that was the last I ever heard of it.
This would imply that the scenes were indeed finished, which is interesting because the scenes were allegedly filmed without a script and mostly improvised, which I thought implied this was only a proof of concept, but seeing how well other aspects were handled on the project, it wouldn't be hard to believe that Art Data just expected this to work out. From what we know, the full motion video has not surfaced since the '95 Consumer Electronics Show. And as for the raw film, we don't know where it is. I imagine it may have been archived at Art Data Interactive somewhere, but considering it went defunct in September of 1999, it could have been liquidated or destroyed. Or maybe it's just rotting in the building in some back room unknown to the current company that holds that office space. Who knows? Lost media shows up in weird places. As for the Baron suit, Gilman said that he attended Halloween parties of Vinyl, a 3-time Academy Award-winning makeup artist who worked on movies like Miss Doubtfire and Beetlejuice. At one of these parties, Gilman wore the suit pretending to be a stuffed prop and would jump out to scare passerbys. Over time, the suit decayed due to foam latex being prone to rot, leaving the skull like this. And I gotta say, when I first saw this, my immediate thought was, oh my god, it's so FNAF-esque, which there has to be a better non-Gen Z term like that, of just old nostalgic things rotting or abandoned. I'm a horrible young person, I'm sorry. Later on, the skull was put up on eBay and auctioned off for $1,000, being purchased by someone known as Twist C.
So while I was looking for these pictures because they just got lost, I remember I had them for my ICEBERG, but then they just disappeared. So I had to go to Board Mode Gaming's channel to find them again. So thank you to him. He also responded to me about the movie thing, if you saw the editor's note. So thank you, Horde. So I'm searching for this and I just look up Baron of Hell concept statue. It showed me this and I'm like, where did this come from? Is this like a cosplay? No, this is the head of the suit. So it didn't rot away. So this leaves me with questions because why did everybody say the skin rotted away when it didn't? And did Twist C get scammed? Is that the skull that was inside of it? Or is it at the time in this picture missing its skull? Did Twist C donate it back for? Okay, I don't know. It's from the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. They had an exhibit on full motion video cutscenes and this was just on display. Also just on a table. If I saw that, I'm taking it home with me. So while editing this, it just occurred to me, why don't I just try to DM Twisty? And they responded, which thank you so much. They explained to me that there's actually 2 separate heads that were made for the suit. There was the Baron one that's used in the 3DO cutscenes, and also a Minotaur head that was used separately. The Minotaur head is still around its skull, so Twisty has the 3DO skull, and the skin around that one rotted away. The Minotaur one has a separate skull that still has its skin, and that's the one that we're seeing at the Portland Retro Game Expo. I think I remember seeing somewhere they made it from an ogre suit, so I think they just used that body for a couple different costumes with different heads. I could be completely wrong though, so thank you Twist for clearing that up. I didn't know much about the 3DO at all before researching this, but they have an amazing 3DO memorabilia collection.
For a while, the only known photos of the cutscenes were in this previously mentioned GameFan magazine, and this image on Global Effects' website of the suit. But as intrigue of the scene's existence had spread, Heinemann contacted old colleagues asking if she could share this photo, to which she later shared on Twitter in 2015. Then Low Poly Depression in July of 2022 shared these images. Then later on, Heinemann showed these off in August of the same year. But let me know if I missed any other sources that show when these were unearthed. Due to Adrian Carmack and Kevin Cloud being busy working on the game's textures, the game's box art was illustrated by Ivan Punchatz, the late father of Gregor Punchatz, who created the clay models for Doom and Doom 2, along with the clay model references in Doom 64. The box art was resized and reshaped many times to adapt whatever medium it was presented on. Fans sought out for the full, uncropped and uncompressed art, eventually finding a canvas print sold on Bethesda's European Union merchandise website, which a Doom World user, Revenant100, was able to produce a high-resolution, clean variant of it, showing off more of the image such as faint stars in the night sky. In 2017, Romero told his recollection of the events for the process of creating the box art. Romero says Punchatz had brought along a male model into the studio. Some articles say for seemingly no reason the model took off his shirt, but I mean, it was the early 90s, buff guys were the center stage for all action media, and also too as someone who struggles with drawing anatomy, it probably made the pose a lot easier to draw for Punchatz. Romero recalls for about 10 minutes the model kept failing to see the vision he had in mind. Out of frustration, he threw off his own shirt and told the model to get on the floor and grab one of his arms like one of those demons saying, "This is what I'm talking about," and posed with the gun and several other poses. Punchatz then took several pictures for reference, later producing the cover, and the Electronic Gaming Monthly cover for Doom as well. The reference images with Romero and the model have not surfaced today. Ars Technica had requested the photos from the Romero family to no response. It's still unclear if Romero and or id is in possession of any of these photos today. I thought I'd try to get in contact with Ivan's son, Gregor Punchatz, and DM'd him on Instagram. And to my surprise, he responded, which was a big starstruck moment for my nerd self, as I just love his work. Seriously, he has an underrated YouTube channel. Go look at it. He reimagined some of the Doom 64 models and the original Archvile model. It is so cool to look at, and I love him. And also looking back, I'm a little embarrassed since I didn't realize at the time this was my profile picture on Instagram.
I originally asked Gregor about the 64 models, but then after that, I was like, hey, do you know anything about the reference photos your dad took for the box art? And he gave me so much info. The model that was used wasn't really a model, it was Ivan's apprentice Mike Wimmer.
And yeah, this guy has the exact physique of Doom Guy. And with Romero not providing any of the photos himself to back up the story, I think it's safe to say that this man is the true Doom Guy. And I found this guy's Instagram, and this guy can paint. He has done amazing historical and fantasy pieces. Please go check him out.
While editing this, I was able to get in contact with Mr. Wimmer, and he is the nicest guy. He gave me the biggest lore drop. He was a competitive bodybuilder, which explains that. He was Mr. Teenage Oklahoma. He also placed 6th in Mr. Teenage America. During college, he spent his 3rd and 4th year as Don's apprentice, which he said was the best education he could have. He says he didn't do much other than clean up, run errands, pose, paint background elements, etc. He used Mike as models from time to time, and gave him an art piece in college when he graduated. That being a Da Vinci robot as a Vitruvian man, joking that he was upset because Don made his arms smaller. For the reference image, he was dressed in jeans, a tight t-shirt, and a big belt. It was taken on a 4x5 Polaroid camera that belonged to Don. It produced a negative that was developed by a local photo developer at a mall, blown up to the final size he wanted to work at, placed the image under architectural film, then painted and drew on that with acrylics. He doubts that the image still exists today, and if it did, it would have been saved in an envelope with all the reference and sketches, then filed away. He helped build shelves in Don's attic so he can make more storage and space for his art. He talks about how the visuals for the cover was so much better than the original game, telling Don he'd like to play it, but the graphics card capabilities were pretty poor. He never knew that it would become such a big deal, and he says his students that love to play the game were amazed at the connection to their favorite video game.
So, as of today, any reference pictures that show Romero and or Wimmer have not seen the light of day.
Thank you so much, Gregor, for all the information and pointing me to Mike. Mike was super kind, and he's a big inspiration because I really want to get back into like bigger painting art.
I would like to update the Lost Media Wiki page on who the model was, as he told me it was Mike, but I don't know how to do that, and we'll look into it. So everyone has probably heard by now that Doom 4, or what was at one point going to be Doom 2016, was very different from what we got in the end. The existence of Doom 4 was first alluded to by John Carmack at QuakeCon of 2007, as seen in this Game Informer interview. There will be a Doom 4. We don't have it scheduled or a team assigned to it, but there will be a Doom 4. There's going to be a Quake Arena sequel, there's a Wolfenstein thing in production, we're following along with all those. The game doesn't have to be Doom, it's going to be something different. We later got confirmation of development in 2008, alongside with id accepting applications for job positions for the project. The game was announced right after abandoning another horror project called Darkness, which little is known about it as it was canned due to having similarities with Doom 3, along with the technological potential of mega textured tech creating outdoor environments. Fans were told at QuakeCon of 2009 to expect Doom news at QuakeCon of 2010, but were disappointed as Todd Hollinshed said it wouldn't be shown, which is someone who was debating taking a whole road trip to Texas last year for QuakeCon to see any Dark Age news. If I made the trip being promised I would see news about the DLC and didn't, I'd be pretty miffed. Now, I can't find an official cancellation date, but I feel like I'm just not looking hard enough. Some interviews with the dev team called it Call of Doom, and with the leaked trailers we got, it isn't really hard to see why, with many speculating it was going to be a tactical military shooter or simply a Call of Duty clone. Marty Don't Pay Up Stratton even went on to say it was the personality of the game that led to it being scrapped, fearing it wouldn't be what fans wanted. And yeah, with how Doom 3 was received by fans for being too horror focused, I feel like this game would constantly be called the too tactical focused one of the Doom franchise. I could see people complaining about reloading, taking cover, like how Doom 3's biggest complaints were too dark and slow, instead of fast paced, no reloading like the originals are known for. Which, yeah, this is all obvious, so they did turn all of that into 2016, so probably a great decision in the end.
Okay, and also because this video took me forever to make, if you guys don't know, there was a lot of layoffs at id Software. A ton of artists are just without work because of Xbox's poor financial decisions. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to act like I understand everything completely, but during that, a lot of artists were showing off their demo reels, and we got a ton more footage of what Doom 4 was going to look like. This channel I found, Crispies, has been archiving so much of it, and like, just look at all of this stuff, this like combining enemy, and I know it's probably because it's not what we got, it's a lot more interesting, but just all these concepts, man. All these really cool concepts a creative designer came up with, and now it's just gone. It wasn't used. Please bring that back. Next Doom game, because apparently they're working on it, even with their small team, bring that back. That is a cool design.
Now, in the Lost Media Wiki, there's a link that supposedly shows the game's pre-alpha status, but the URL has been excluded from the Wayback Machine. Again, if I'm missing anything, please let me know. I'm very new to actually researching Lost Media myself. I have only watched like every single Lost Media video. The whole research part I haven't done until this, so if I'm doing anything wrong, any advice, please let me know. Not so much lost rather than canceled, Doom 4 is still so interesting how years of development can turn into nope, and then somehow just come out perfect in the end with 2016. Doom 64 was originally a lot more ambitious of a title than it had ended up being, with a lot more being planned for it. At one point it said it was going to cover a whole bunch of different cultures' versions of hell, which is really cool, and probably where we get this pyramid thing, which comes up later on the iceberg, so go check that out. Multiplayer was noticeably absent from the final game, which developers claimed was a huge blow to the game's success, as they wanted to compete with GoldenEye, with GoldenEye's multiplayer being a big contesting point for what players chose to get. In response to this, the team began to work on a sequel to the game known as Doom Absolution, which was actually going to be Doom 64's original title. Doom Absolution was going to be entirely multiplayer focused, with 2 screen-player deathmatch, and no single player, with multiplayer being the top priority. Several levels were completed and playable, allegedly taking place on the moon. However, during development, the project was cancelled, with the Doom engine beginning to show its age, compared to Turok 2, Unreal, and Quake 64. As a quote, "Didn't cut the mustard." This guy was a visionary. As of writing this script, there have been no gameplay or screenshots of the build, which I would love to see because 64 is my favorite of the classics.
But that's the video. If you don't care about me or where I've been, feel free to click off. So those were some lost media of Doom. There's still a lot more. These are the ones I kind of felt like I could explain the best, knew mostly about them. This video took me almost an entire year to finish because twice a year I have these freelance projects I do for an old friend. I have a full-time job with just about a 2-hour commute. A lot of my weekends I help out at my church. I'm the father of 2 deformed children, and I do try to do my best to have time for this because I love making these. I have a lot of project ideas I still want to do. I still like making these long form Doom iceberg videos, video essays, but I also just don't want to be stuck with that. I'm still going to be doing the Doom iceberg, but I wouldn't say it's top priority as I want to branch out with other pursuits. I always say I try to stream more, so if you want to watch me suck at catching up on the Deltarune chapters on Twitch, you can check it out there. I was able to make dual streaming to YouTube work at one point, and now it just doesn't. I don't know. I really want to get back into animation because I was messing around with Toon Boom Harmony, and that is such a good program. I'm trying to be better at voice acting. If you saw my shorts or follow me on anything, I post those there. And if you could tell by the way I read my script sometimes, I'm trying to get better with enunciating words. I do cosplays, I go to conventions just as Red Doom guy. I want to do more, but currently I have no more room for 3D printed parts. Trying to learn how to write a story well. I have an idea for a thing I want to make, but my writing's not the best. I'm just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what I'm good at, what sticks. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before. I have ADD, which gives me horrible executive dysfunction with certain things, which I know some people may say that's just a fancy way of saying procrastinating or being lazy. But I've really been wanting to work on this video, but my brain has this thing where it's like, if conditions are not perfect, I can't start it. I've seen some people describe it as my brain doesn't want to waste energy, even though I want to do this. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it too well. I've thought about making like a storytime video on mental health because that's never been done before ever. I've been doing a lot better with it, which is kind of what helped me get this video going because I recorded the script and did most of the research back in November. And then I had a couple things happen to where it helped me be motivated to get this done. Like I started editing this, I want to say in May. So thank you so much for watching again. Everyone in the comments has been so supportive on the iceberg, which again, I'm not stopping it. I don't want it to slow down. I really want to keep going at a faster pace of what it's been doing because it's been almost a year again from the last time I did that. This was just kind of a branch out because I've been obsessed with Blame It on Jorge and a bunch of Lost Media stuff. So I wanted to do Doom Lost Media, but I'm just going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff. If you only come here for the Doom content, 100% understand. I'm not asking you to watch everything else. I really wish there was a way for YouTube so where I could separate my topics for videos where if like you are subscribed and you only want to be notified about when I make a Doom video, that would be the only time you get an alert. I have a playlist for the Doom iceberg. I also might just make one on my Doom content. I think there might be a way to have notifications on for that when it's updated. I'm not entirely sure. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. God bless. And my friend Aiden says hi.